Now in this clip, I want to show you how easy it is to go back and modify virtually any aspect of the design up to this point. Let's say you're doing this project for a client and they come back and say, we're loving what we're seeing so far, but the product name has been changed and we want to change the color of the label art itself. Well, in some cases you might think, well, I've got to go back and start all over again. But in this case, we don't have to do that. We purposely built the 3D object in the way we did and contained it so that we could make changes anytime we wanted to. So if you go in your layers panel and go down to that smart object layer containing the 3D can, remember we turned it into a smart object when we ran that blur effect earlier. But now I'm just going to double click on that layer and open up the image containing the 3D object. Now here in the layers panel, I'm going to click on the 3D layer to reveal the sublayers here. And I want to double click on label material to go ahead and open up the original label art. And there we are, the original label art that we created in the beginning, all intact, all the layers are there in place. So now let's say the client has decided they want to call it Cosmic Jolt because it's an energy drink now. Well, we still got that text layer here in the image. I'm going to double click that and highlight the text. Rather, let's just highlight the word cola, and let's go ahead and change that to Jolt. There we go. Now, let's change the color of the background. Remember, we added that yellow to red gradient, and looks really good, but we're going to go ahead and create a new blank layer above that layer. I don't want to replace the original one. They may decide to go back to that, so you don't want to get rid of it, but rather I'm just going to go ahead and create a new layer above it. And let's introduce a new gradient in there. Now this time I'm going to do a variation on a green gradient. So I'm going to go ahead and click on my foreground swatch here, and let's get kind of a dark green color here to start with. There we go, something like that. And then I'm going to click on the background swatch, and let's go with a much brighter green, something almost fluorescently like that. And I'm going to select my gradient tool here in the toolbar, and up here in the options bar, first thing is I want to make sure I have the foreground to background gradient selected right there. And then over here, I'm going to select the reflected gradient. So that actually gives me kind of this dark area and a light area. I'm going to undo that because what I want to do here is over here in the options bar, I'm going to flip the colors around. You'll notice the foreground color is the dark green and the background is the lighter green. I'm actually going to click on this little bent arrow and flip those around. And that will make the light green in the center area there. So undo that. So now just add the gradient pretty much wherever you want. I'm going to keep the line kind of going through or right by the area of the text here. Let's do something like that perhaps. And that gives me a good variation of colors there. Oh, let's do something like that. So I've got the line at an angle like that. So just try a few different directions of the gradient, see which way you like it. And I think that looks pretty good. I also want to change the color of the text. So I'm going to go ahead and select the text layer. And I'm going to go ahead and select the yellow color I've used before here in my swatches panel. And if I go over here and click on the foreground color swatch there, you can see the numbers that make up this yellow color. So that I'm going to take, and since it's set as my foreground color here, I'm just going to press Option Delete or Alt Backspace to go ahead and fill the text with that color. There, you can see it there. I'm actually going to turn off these halftone elements. So let's go turn off those and just kind of leave it with the wavy line image there. So those are all the changes I'm going to make to my label. Notice I didn't delete anything. I retained all the elements of the original background and these halftone dot elements. I just simply turn those layers off in the event that I may want to use them again. So I'm going to close this image and save the changes. You'll see now the can is updated with the new artwork. Just simply have to render the can now. Remember, we have this can contained in a smart object. So we do need to render it in this image before we close it and save the changes to update the smart object. So I'm going to go ahead and start the render on here, and let's just jump ahead to the finished render and continue on. All right, so I will let the render go ahead and run through, and now I'm just going to close this image and save the changes, and this will update the smart object in the final image, and there we have it, completely updated without having to go back to the beginning. So you can see how forgiving it is. Even getting this far with a seemingly complex design, you can go back and make changes without starting all over again. And that is one of the great advantages of using 3D here inside Photoshop.